What's good, everybody?
Hey, how's it going?
We're back. As you can see, Mattis has made some changes.
So many changes.
We're being very supportive here at the Lodge. We got no problem with it.
Happy Pride Month, everybody.
Happy Pride Month. No, this is my girlfriend and esteemed chemical engineer.
I wouldn't say esteemed.
I would say so. Catherine Gascon. And she is here because Mattis is filling in for Pop Culture Crisis for almost the entirety of this week down at the Timcast studio. But we didn't want to prevent that from us having the show to some level this week. So we came up with the fun idea of, you know what? Kat's been on the show before. For those of you who may be newer to the channel, back, I don't know, I would say, what, 2 years ago now?
Yeah, like 2021?
Yeah. So a while back here, Kat was a staple on a show that was called Lore Lounge.
The Lore Lounge. The real ones know. The real ones were at the lounge.
The real ones know that Mattis's hair was dyed blue. There was, in fact, a Maid Outfit at one point. If you want to, feel free to go back deep into the channel.
It is worth delving into the archives for. Absolutely.
But you can.
It's not necessary. I'm saying it's worth it.
That's fair. That's totally fair. But nonetheless, Kat has returned to the Lodge. Really, she's never left. For those of you who may watch History Unhinged, she was pivotal in helping me design and create that backdrop and everything that is the studio there. She's even taken it upon herself to do the murals on the windows.
Yeah, we're doing a little faux stained glass look.
Yeah.
Should be complete by the next filming session.
Thankfully. Yeah. So Kat is one of the many people who keeps things running behind the scenes, even though it is not officially her job. She helps out like it is. We also have our new intern, Sophie, is in studio with us as well. You do not need to say hi, but you're welcome to if you would like.
Hey, hi. Can you hear me?
So we're gonna have fun tonight. Just as a heads up, despite the fact that we're a little late here, because obviously it's not the Lore Lodge without some form of technical problems, and hopefully you can hear us. It seems like you can. We'll probably be taking questions for super chats up until around 7:45 to 8. Not sure how many y'all are going to have tonight, but my benefit for tonight is I don't have to worry about staying too late because no one's going to be at home mad at me if I take too long because she's here.
I'm never mad. I am never...
Are you sure?
Mad is a strong word.
What's the word you would use?
Get back to me.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, so the real reason that, or the real topic of conversation that we would like to focus on tonight is Khamar Daban, primarily because it's the one that I could think of that best fit her skill set. And that skill set would be understanding chemicals and their interactions within the environment, specifically because, and if you would like to describe what this is, she is familiar with and has done many dispersion models throughout her time as a chemical engineer.
Yes.
So for those in the audience who are not familiar with that, would you like to describe that? And then I will explain why that's going to be important here.
Yes. So I'm a chemical engineer by training, and for for 3 years, I was a part of the process safety department at my company, which meant that on a large part, it was basically looking at the risks of operating our chemical plants. And one of the things to understand risk, you need to know how bad something can be if you have a release. You need to know, hey, I have this chemical X and I have 100 pounds of it. Say it got out into the environment. How bad would that be? What is the range that we are potentially looking at for telling people that they need to evacuate? Is it going to cause, lethal injury? Is it going to cause, less lethal injury? So just kind of understanding what the risks are of different chemical compounds, and then modeling releases based on things like weather effects, the type of chemical, if it's a gas or a liquid or a solid, how volatile it is, how easily it goes from a liquid state to a vapor state. All that fun stuff kind of helps us understand, hey, what was the risk level of, this quantity of material? Was the risk level of, say, a 50-pound release versus a 100-pound release versus a 10,000-pound release?
Awesome. Yeah. And for those of you who may not have figured it out by now, the reason why that's going to be important is because the story this is relevant to is what is known as Khamar Daban, which if you have not heard of that before, we have done a video on it. So I'd recommend watching that if you have not yet. But this doesn't really spoil anything of it. It's just one element of one of the theories. But the whole story of Khamar Daban is it basically was another version of Dyatlov Pass, which was a hiking expedition that went about as wrong as it can. Dyatlov Pass was a famous one. We also have a couple videos on that, where a group of hikers went missing. There was a potential avalanche. They were inevitably found, but it was very confusing. Khamar Daban arguably is even weirder. The reason why I say that is because unlike a lot of the scenarios that are potential theories for Dyatlov Pass, where it's, they might have been crushed or, they might have starved, things like that. A lot of the theories are about things that happen over a decent chunk of time, because by the evidence, it would seem that, some people were essentially in a scenario where they had to be in survival, and they potentially could have made it out if circumstances were not as drastic. Khamar Daban, on the other hand, was extremely unusual because the tragedy happened almost instantaneously. And when I say that, I mean the pinnacle of the story is this group of hikers was out on the side of a mountain in Siberia, and they were several days into their trip. And they were mostly younger people in their like 20s or so, along those lines. But their guide, she was in her 40s or such. And so what happened was she woke up in the middle of the night and began to wake up other members of the hiking party because something was wrong. She didn't clarify what she meant by that, but they were in the midst of a cyclone at the time. And so there were very high winds, and there was some serious weather occurring. And it got to the point where she woke everybody up and said, okay, well, we need to leave. We need to leave right now. And everybody evacuated the tent and started running down the side of the mountain. And at that point, and we know this because of the one person who was there who was able to get back and tell the story, people began to essentially scream in agony and collapse. And later, when everybody's bodies essentially were found, there were a lot of markings of what some people have theorized was essentially chemical warfare. Their bodies had been completely eviscerated at the cellular level. Different organs had severe damage that didn't make any sense other than potentially a chemical accident. There was I can't remember if it was pulmonary edema or what it was.
It was pulmonary edema.
It was.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of serious injuries, and the one woman who survived, she noted that as they were all running, people were dropping like flies in seconds. And the only reason that she survived is she dropped to the ground and she crawled. And I can't remember what her reasoning for dropping and crawling was, but she was the only one who was able to crawl down the mountain and get to the tree line and eventually find her way back to civilization, with the aid of some rescuers and things like that. But so a lot of questions have been posed about this story.
Yes.
Especially considering it's in the Soviet Union. It's in the middle of the Cold War.
1993.
Yes, 1993. So towards the end of the Cold War. And then there was a chemical testing site, if I remember, that was near here. I don't know how well we went into that in the Friday video, but there was some research facility in the area.
So I looked into it, and there actually wasn't.
Really?
Yes.
Because that's a big thing that, we have heard time and again.
Yes. So the main nerve agent chemical warfare that everyone talks about when it comes to Khamar Daban is Novach, which is Russian for new agent, new messenger. But what you need to understand is that Novach is essentially a very, very potent, very deadly nerve agent. I think it's 10 times more lethal than sarin gas.
That's intense.
Yeah. And so the Russians were developing it in the 80s up to the early 90s. And they were developing it primarily in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, were the main research facilities for this, and the main known testing sites. So it has come out that they did, in fact, develop this. They tested it on dogs. And there was, I believe, also a testing site near Moscow. Those locations are nowhere near the mountain that supposedly they were on. Now, I have seen people claiming that there was recent testing, like 5 months before they got there, that there was testing done at the top of the mountain.
And I think that's kind of what they're...
And I have not been able to find a single source that corroborates that. I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but that's there was no production facility near there or documented production facility. There was absolutely documented production facilities in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan on that like kind of like western edge of the Soviet Union, but not in the middle, right near the Lake Baikal of. I think I'm saying that right.
Baikal, I think is it.
Yeah, Baikal. Yeah.
But no, I mean that's a good information to know, because that was something I wasn't totally sure about. I know there is suggestion of maybe it was just a testing site,
right? And
but
it is, very much out there, in terms of, you if you were going to be testing something like this, you would want to test it far away from population centers. How close you are to passersby, civilians is 100% something that we consider in the world of chemical process safety. You don't want to build a chemical processing site like right next to a community or an elementary school or anything like that. You want to go as far out as possible. So for something as serious and intense as nerve agent munitions testing, I would imagine they would want to go out very deep.
And that's the thing, because the towns that are nearby are not anywhere near far enough to be considered away from being particularly in a danger zone for something like that.
Right.
Granted, it was the Soviet Union, but at the same time,
it was the 90s.
You think they would have at least learned from, Chernobyl. So
I can see there being testing in restricted military facilities, and if anyone has any more information about there being like a kind of more remote restricted military facility in Russia in that area, I think that would be really interesting. But from everything that I found, the main production facility for this nerve agent that everyone's talking about, the Novach, is just not. Oh, I'm getting zoomed in on. This is so exciting. Is just not even close. Not even in the same country.
So in terms of what would be the results of chemical exposure to even sarin, let alone, what was the name of the other one that you were talking about that they were researching? Novach. So were you in your research able to find what the results of exposure to that would entail?
So that's the really interesting thing about Novach is it is very rarely a gas.
Interesting. Is it more liquid form, or?
It's solid. So
really?
Yes. So everyone, when we were talking about this, and the boys actually came to me, a few months ago.
During the main research portion.
During the main research portion, they were like, I just don't think that a gas would, you would get a pocket of gas coming in if there was like a big storm, a big rainstorm coming through. And I was like, yeah, you're going to have such high winds. And they were like, yes, there were really high winds. And I was like, if you have really high winds, that's going to be incredible dispersion. You're going to get stuff, it's all going to be very well dispersed and diluted. And that would lower the concentration that you were exposed to, which would mean either being exposed to a lower concentration means that, when it comes to poisoning, we typically think of things in terms of doses. So that is your exposure time and the concentration you're exposed to. So if you lower the concentration you're exposed to, it's going to take a lot more exposure time for you to see those effects. And given that everything was so rapid onset from the testimony of Valentina, the sole survivor, you would expect that to be a very high concentration, which in the weather conditions that were described would just not be possible with a gas or a vapor.
And so that was going to be my question is, like, obviously you haven't really had time to do a dispersion model of this event. We could at some point if we wanted to, but given just the general understanding of the scenario and sarin as an example, considering what you described as their primary research focus was not usually a gaseous phase, what kind of density and volume would you expect would be necessary given the known weather conditions of this incident?
So given that it picked something up and carried it and like hit a very small pocket, I can't think of a density, right, of powdered poison that would mimic this and hit 6 out of 7 individuals in a group. What could potentially make sense, and this is a little interesting, is it seemed to hit one person first, Sasha, and it hit Sasha, and then the leader of the group rushed over to him, and then she started having symptoms being foaming at the mouth, bleeding from the eyes, and these are things that are symptomatic of Novichok poisoning. So if he had maybe picked something up or kicked something, maybe like a package, right, that had a good clump of this stuff in there, and he kicked it up and all that dust is now up, that I could see. That to me is the more likely scenario based on the primary form that Novichok seemed to take in terms of like a very light, very fine powder that was used to, like, you want to get as fine as possible to disperse it as much as possible. But at that point, you're going to get, right, that inhalation exposure and then also the dermal exposure through your skin.
Mm-hmm. Now, the thing that comes to my mind with dermal would be, granted, it was at night, so they probably weren't wearing as much. But given the weather of the area, it's not like it was going to be like hot summer in the seaside. It was up in the mountains in the middle of a cyclone. And I can't remember what month this was, but
this was August.
Yeah. But still, I mean, it's in Siberia, so it's not quite August in the Mediterranean.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So, dermal was probably a lower chance than inhalation.
Right. But I would imagine they still had some exposed face.
Yes.
And I think what's really interesting about the dermal exposure route is if we're assuming that it is Novichok, if we go explore down this pathway, right?
That's what we're here for.
Walk down this pathway with me. If you say that we have, Sasha at the back of the group pick something up or kick something on the ground, sees like maybe a weirdly shaped rock, kicks it, and a bunch of dust like all of a sudden flies up into his face and starts foaming at the mouth and bleeding, right? Someone comes over and is like, oh my God, what's going on? And then she starts having these symptoms. And the people that are going over to them are also now getting this. One of the reasons that they noted on the official death report was they said that these people died from hypothermia. And one of the reasons they said they died of hypothermia was because of the paradoxical undressing that was discovered with the bodies. And in cases of hypothermia, I know we talk about it a lot on the Lore Lodge, but a lot of times if you're really, really cold for a while and then hypothermia starts to set in, you feel really warm, really cozy, almost too warm. And you actually find people who have been missing in the forest in really cold conditions that have taken off their coats, taken off their outer layers because of the way that hypothermia makes you feel so warm. And they eventually succumb to the elements. Once you start undressing, that's your brain's really messing with you there. So it had been noted that a lot of their clothes were found in states of undress, and paradoxical undressing from hypothermia is absolutely one way that could happen. But say you see a dust cloud and all of the people that are touching that are starting to foam at the mouth and bleed from the eyes. Oh yeah, I would be, absolutely stripping off my outer layers as well, trying to get away from that. That's actually one of the things you're supposed to do if exposed to any chemical agent. In the absence of a safety shower where you go in and you pull the shower and it rinses all the stuff off you, you're supposed to strip off your outer layers if you are exposed. So it would not be crazy if they knew or hypothesized that there was some chemical agent causing this that they would start to take off those outer layers. And that could explain how their bodies were found.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that's a great point. And even if they didn't know it was chemical, you know, they could also think, I mean, Chernobyl had just happened less than a decade prior. You know, people understood that radioactive particles were extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
So if there was even an assumption that, hey, these particles are causing this problem, with the back of the mind understanding of like, hey, radioactive particles can cause this stuff. I need to not have them on my body. It could be that, without them ever even assuming it was chemical. Now, granted, they may have very well just have assumed it was chemical, but knowing the mentality of people at the time, that's also possible that that might have been the motivation as well.
Yeah.
I can't recall if, what was her name? The woman who survived?
Valentina.
Did she mention anything about the reasoning from her perspective of what the cause may or may not have been? I know we covered this, but I can't remember it.
So it's a little bit different because she has two accounts. So there was the account that she gave back then in 1993. And then there was a more recent account in 2018. And so the account from 1993 really had them, you know, starting, they had weathered the night in the storm, got a fire going in the morning, woke up, got a fire going, and then packed up and head down the mountain. And then this all started. The 2018 version of her events had the group leader waking everyone up and saying, hey, something's wrong, we need to go. So there's a little bit of, you know, uncertainty, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the main uncertainty from that was the original account. Supposedly, the man that was told the account was a bit dismissive because he was one of the guides and he was not a fan of the leader of that. So he wanted to make it a little bit more
her fault. Yeah, she starved these kids and, you know, led them into a bad situation. But they had warm clothes in plastic bags.
Also, they had been fed extremely well.
They had been fed extremely well. They were getting like 2,400 calories a day about from just the food that they had packed and also food that they were foraging. And they had warmer clothes in plastic, sealed in plastic in the event of an emergency that they had not opened. They was found sealed with the bodies, which also says to me that this is them being in states of undress is not a sign of paradoxical undressing due to hypothermia, because if it was, you would imagine they would have been colder before that and put those on and then maybe taken them off, right? But they wouldn't be still sealed.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts overall on the chemical theory by comparison to our theory of the very unusual and not often heard infrasound?
Here's the thing. I like both, but when it comes to the theory that I've heard kicked around, which is, oh, this was a site of like a chemical plant, you know, it was, they did all sorts of chemical processing here. They didn't. And if they did, it would not have gotten out in that way. And if it had, it would not have like just all of a sudden randomly hit 6 out of 7 of a group. And it was like seemed like from all of the accounts that I've heard and the videos that are about this, it was a fairly popular hiking path. Like it was.
Yeah, there were other people that had been out during this period,
right?
That had recently been in the area. Understanding it was something that like a lot of people did frequently.
There's no, you know, secret chemical plant like at Yosemite, you know, or Yellowstone
that they've told us about.
That they've told us about. But it's just not. It's not realistic. And
wait, guys, breaking. That's what the actual volcano is about at Yellowstone.
Oh my God!
It's not a volcano. It's just a secret government site that they don't want you to access.
Obviously. But the fact that there could have been, I don't know, maybe a military operation using a dummy pack or like a real pack of some of this stuff that maybe got left behind, you know, accidentally. I mean, there's minefields with unexploded things in really random locations. It was the end of the Cold War. There was a lot of random testing going on. I don't see this as being like a commonly used testing site, but I don't think it's out of the realm that there could have been some unexploded munition or unused package of this really deadly nerve agent that was stumbled across by the hiking group.
Sophie's saying cocaine bear.
Cocaine bear. Yeah, it's like it was cocaine bear, except instead of getting you high, it just kind of like kills you immediately.
A lot of modern cocaine is like that. So
also the other thing too about like the paradoxical undressing and all of that. So Novichok is you can't smell it. It's undetectable. But I don't know how it feels to have a bunch of it on you. And something that is that poisonous, I imagine might burn, might feel bad if you got it on your skin.
Novacek feels bad, man.
It feels bad, man. I mean, and I'm not saying that's 100% what it is. Clearly, we have no idea, which is why we're still talking about it.
Yep.
So many years later. But I think there's a possibility that if it was anything, right, that's what I'm saying. There's no way it was a gas. There's no way that there was a pocket of poison gas that swept down the mountain due to these really complex winds. Absolutely no way, right? Absolutely not. If there was any poison gas being stirred up, it would have been so diluted, such low concentrations that there's no way that would have had those severe effects over the span of minutes. So crazy whack circumstance that you just find a pile of this nerve agent and you accidentally get it on you and subsequently the rest of the group. I can see that. I can also see the infrasound because again, it's one of those crazy whack things that, it's, I want to say like very low probability, but very low probability things happen every day.
Yep. And the thing is with the infrasound theory is the circumstances with which they found themselves lent themselves to a higher likelihood of being exposed to infrasound.
Yes.
Given the scenario that was happening with the winds, with their location, all of that. And also the reasoning why Valentina, there we go. Guys, I'm horrible with names. The reason why Valentina may have been the one to survive because she was the one to drop and crawl.
Yes.
And my section of the theory with that is because when you're horizontal, there's a very small, when you're vertical, and you're running away from the sound that is attacking you, there's a very small area of space that your body has to potentially absorb the sound. However, if you're horizontal longitudinally with the wind, that wind, when it hits your feet, it has a much longer period to slow down within your body before it hits your vital organs if it's going through your legs. So there's a much greater likelihood of decreasing the amount of tissue damage, especially to organ damage, if that was the scenario. So that was part of the reason why we went with the infrasound theory. So yeah, just given that, it makes a lot of sense why it's like, okay, this is a scenario that may in fact be more plausible.
Yeah.
Given
I like the infrasound theory. I like it a lot. I think it would be very cool to test and like put a creature in that situation. Maybe not a human creature or a cute creature, but for science we do tend to put creatures in situations.
We do.
And see kind of what if we could potentially recreate the situation that they saw on the side of that mountain. I will say there is another theory that is kind of interesting, and that's they were poisoned by poisonous mushrooms that they accidentally foraged. So given the first testimony by Valentina, the survivor, they did have breakfast and then they started off down the mountain. And there are a lot of poisonous mushrooms that can look like non-poisonous mushrooms. And the tour leader was known to forage and teach foraging skills to her students. So it's possible that either she or her students, thinking that they were like, oh yeah, I just got taught this. This is a good one. This is a good mushroom. Could have gotten it, put it in breakfast, and either just by chance or maybe she wasn't a fan of mushrooms or whatever, she might not have had the same exact breakfast that everyone else had and might have had less exposure to that poison.
And to clarify, this is very much assuming that the first version of the story was the most accurate.
Very much assuming the first version of the story is more accurate and not the 2018 version, which, you know, it could go either way, right? You could say, hey, she was being silenced by the guy who was doing the story taking, and he had an agenda, so he's going to push a certain narrative. Or you could say someone's memory, you know, right after something happens is going to be a lot more reliable than it is 20, 30 years after the incident.
Yeah, that's true. Great. That was fantastic. So are there any final thoughts that you have on Khamar Daban? Because there is another topic I want to bring up.
There's one final thought I have on Khamar Daban, and it is regardless of whether it was, you know, poisonous mushrooms or infrasound or the nerve agent, I do believe that the government thought it was nerve agent.
Really?
Because, and this was in Wendigoon's episode, and it wasn't in yours. But after, so she was found, right? So she escaped, right? This event. It was like 4 or 5 days in the wilderness, following the river, looking for help. Finally got help. And then they took her to, you know, within a couple days, got her to a population center. It took 2 weeks from that for them to go out looking for the survivors. 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's kind of a long time.
Yeah, given, you know, the scenario.
Yeah, given the scenario, like they're like, so this girl showed up and she said that like everyone was foaming at the mouth and like bleeding, and like if I was like a Russian like government at that point, I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna give that a couple weeks to like settle. Like,
Yeah, well, we'll cover that eventually. Yeah, just in case.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there eventually. And then, you know, and it's a shame too, because it's like, well, because it was so long for them to get to the bodies, right? First of all, any Russian media is not going to be accurate. But like, even if it was, it's like, what are you going to do with, you know, 3-week-old, nearly a month at that point, right? Decomposing body. Like, what can you really say? Like, oh, this was for sure hypothermia, or like, oh, their bodies were eviscerated by infrasound. Like, you can't do that kind of analysis 3 weeks after the fact. No, not a shot. So whatever it was, I think the Russians were hedging their bets that it could have been a freak Novach exposure incident. But at the end of the day, we just don't know.
We just don't know. Maybe we'll find out eventually, but unlikely. But I think now is a good time. So we had said initially 7:45, but I'll say, you know what? If you have more questions, throw them in. We'll go to an 8 p.m. cutoff.
Love it.
For questions, just because that segment was a little on the shorter side, not in a bad way. We were just extremely concise, far more than we normally are on this show. That's not a dig. It's just that, you know, when you have somebody with a real job who presents frequently, they generally are a little better than 2 knuckleheads who run a YouTube channel are staying on topic and being a good presenter.
I can try to get off topic more if you'd like.
Oh, no, that's totally fine. Don't worry. Well, they'll do it for us.
Perfect.
But in transitioning to question time, there was one question I thought would be great as a transitioning question, because I think we are going to want to be able to expand on this one a little bit more, since we did just find out a little more detail about this topic. And you'll know what I'm talking about when I reach the end of a Real Cartel Pilots super chat for $19.84. Thank you.
Amazing.
Says, hey, y'all, I'm at work right now, so I'll keep it short. I'm at a 24-hour shift, and it sucks, by the way. Matt is drowned in tartar sauce. The Earth is a 4D cube. The moon is flat, and the government is hiding cheese in underground bunkers. And ladies and gentlemen,
the government is hiding cheese in underground bunkers.
That's not a conspiracy theory. That they literally are doing that. It's not so much hiding, actually, because they do give it out, which is kind of interesting. We were watching a video yesterday as part of recuperation because we had a hectic weekend here at the lodge. It was good. It was fun. But we were watching a video from a channel that we love called Climate Town with Raleigh Williams, and they do a lot of phenomenal deep dives on different things. This episode happened to be a deep dive on
The dairy industry.
the dairy industry. Turns out, and I feel like this was a borderline Lore Lodge episode, in my opinion, because it was basically just uncovering the conspiracy, which is real, that the dairy industry as a whole has just genuinely been manipulating government and the public to consume more dairy products for the sake of perpetuation of the dairy industry, because it got too overblown after World War II, and then they didn't know what to do with it.
Yep.
And then the bad side of capitalism happened, where millions of dairy farms suddenly consolidated into about 400,000 as of right now.
40,000.
I thought it was 400,000. Yeah, it was 400,000.
All right.
I remember looking at the thing because I was surprised that there were still that many. I was surprised that they didn't monopolize even further. However, they did in a sense, because all of them are now funding, what was the word called again?
So it's basically, I think it's like a check agency
Yes, that was it.
is the phrase for it. But any food producer can band together with other food producers of the same type of food and say, hey, we're going to kind of put our money in this pool and we're all going to advertise for the sake of our food group together. And that's why you get ads like Got Milk, which is not advertising any one farm or anything. It's just advertising truly the concept of milk for every single dairy farmer's sake. So you get these ads that are just like, hey, milk, it's good. And it's wildly successful.
Well, and the other side of that, and this is the really nefarious thing in my
This is what I
personal
didn't know
opinion,
about. Yeah.
was not just are they like marketing the product of milk, but
Which I did know about before watching this
that
video.
made sense. No, they also have, essentially, these companies work with marketing groups and PR groups, and I can't remember, it began with an A, the one that they referred to. But the guy who runs it is also nicknamed Dr. Evil, because they, like, literally, there are news segments that have called him Dr. Evil because of his marketing ability and his PR spinning ability. But essentially what they do is they do outreach with a variety of different fast food companies, and they work to create menu items that incorporate as much dairy product, specifically cheese for a lot of them, as possible. So when you see places like Taco Bell, Domino's, Quiznos, like any fast food chain marketing something like stuffed crust pizza or like the ultimate pizza and like, you know, what was the one with like the rolls of cheese?
I'm so upset. Whoa. Which one with the rolls?
The crust was literally like cheese rolls.
cheese. Yeah, the stuffed crust.
Yeah.
Well, the Domino's just came out with their stuffed crust.
Yeah.
Cheese.
And
pizza, which is unfortunately, apparently, just an ad campaign by the dairy industry.
It's essentially just lobbying from the dairy industry.
I am so mad that the cheesy quesalupa from Taco Bell was not, dreamed up in a lab innocently by Taco Bell scientists, but was instead nefariously planned by the dairy industry to just shove more cheese down the American people's gullets.
Yep. And I can't remember I remember the graph, but I can't remember the percentages of what our general dairy intake on an annual basis is as compared to like the 1970s. I think it's quadrupled.
It's crazy. It has gone up. So I don't know all of dairy, but I know that compared to 2003, the American cheese consumption has gone up 20%. And yogurt and other dairy products have also gone up 20%. Do you guys remember butter boards? Like, that was a trend. Aiden didn't know about this, but I'm too chronically online.
Can you explain it for those who might not know it?
So, you know the concept of a charcuterie board, or a charcuterie board, as I like to call them, where you have a board and you put, cheeses and meats and crackers out on it, arranged like artfully. I want to say like a year ago, maybe.
It was like a TikTok trend. Yeah.
It was a TikTok trend that made its way to Instagram Reels, which is how I saw it. And it was just people spreading like softened butter out on a board and then like drizzling like honey over it, or like hot pepper flakes and like crushed walnuts and stuff and herbs. And you would just get like fresh torn bread and just dip it into this like dressed up fancy butter. And it was a butter board. Apparently, that was a scheme by the dairy industry, by these marketing campaign people.
Yeah, literal dairy industry psyop.
Literal dairy industry psyop. I'm blown away.
So here's the thing, though. So I believe it was Mars the Unicorn.
Yes.
Who asked? So they're like really working to market, and you know it might be a little nefarious, whatever. But isn't cheese good for you?
So I'm not going to get into this. I'm not going to get into this on this channel. Cheese is the idea that cheese and dairy products is good for you is drilled into you also by the dairy industry. They funded a bunch of studies on how dairy is so good for you and helps you lose weight. And then when the studies came back that it doesn't, they just published their ads anyway, saying that it does, and just decided to say that, you know, oh, the study, it doesn't matter what the study says, but we're saying it, and that's all that matters.
Yes.
So I would say do your own research.
Yep.
And don't trust studies that are funded by like the American Dairy Association.
Yeah. Or at the very least, you know, if they fund the studies and then don't let them get published, that might be a good indicator.
Yeah. The other thing too is cheese and dairy products as a whole are very damaging to the environment. You know, I know it sucks. I know you don't want to hear it. But unfortunately, dairy cows and the beef industry, just the cow livestock keeping as a whole is incredibly detrimental to the environment. It releases a lot of methane, which is a very potent greenhouse gas.
And for those of you wondering what authority she has to speak on this, that is her current job.
I am currently in the climate education space. I'm a trained climate fresque workshop facilitator. My current role in the company is as a climate engineer. I'm not a climate scientist by background. Believe me, I'm not, but I am fairly well versed in the topic of climate education.
We've been trying to get our friend group to take one of her trainings at some point, because back when she was just getting started in this role, she had given me one just to kind of like help her learn, and we kind of walk through it and whatnot. Very educational. For somebody who took AP Environmental Science in high school, that didn't even come close to understanding the ins and outs of the whole deal that's going on with climate right now. Obviously, it's a very contentious issue. Ironically enough, I don't think it should be.
I don't think it should be either, but I'm worried that if we don't switch the topic, Mattis is never going to let me come back.
I know. But finishing up on the cheese conspiracy.
Yes, the cheese conspiracy. So there is, in fact, government caves full of cheese. And, you know, so maybe the moon really is flat after all.
You never know.
You never know. I haven't been there.
Allegedly. Anyway, so with that, I think we're going to transition over to Super Chats. Thank you guys so much for hanging in here. And yeah, you've got about 6 more minutes to send in whatever you guys want to ask or demand we say. The demands, we do have veto authority on some of the demands that you guys may or may not make of what we say. So be aware of that. Could I ask a favor of you, though?
A favor of me.
While I read a couple of these super chats, can you grab me a meat stick from the bucket over there?
Do you have a preferred flavor?
I'm in the mood for some bison. If there's bison around, I'd have some. But as we get some sustenance in ourselves, because we did a lot of yard work today prior to doing work this evening for the show, and I did not have enough protein. So for as much as she may be involved in climate, and you know,
a stick of bison,
and I may understand things, I'm not giving up meat. So you know, Call me a hypocrite if you'd like. Jamo, the preacher of the milk, for $5 says, the Boban Sith doth call to me. She whispereth of milk beneath the elder tree. I shall not embrace her, for the milk doth knoweth her as a demon. Thoughts?
Okay, so Boban? Weeby Boba?
Weeby Boba.
Weeby Boba came from an egg.
She's so small and she's so good.
She is so small and she is so good. Those are my thoughts.
Perfect. Understandably so. Trains and Stuff has been a member for 12 months. Thanks for hanging around a year. You have no idea how much I appreciate seeing your username as frequently as I do. Flaw saying, for art thou into D&D? I am, but unfortunately, I rarely have time to actually do it. We have barely had time to watch television lately. So for those of you who may or may not know, I was supposed to do a D&D campaign with Flaw and some of our other friends in the Discord, and I'd initially been like, yeah, I really want to do that. And then I slowly started to realize, oh, wow, yeah, I barely have time to actually, spend life with my girlfriend at times. So probably shouldn't make commitments that I most likely will not be able to follow, especially considering on a daily basis, all of my plans generally go sideways. So today being one of them, would you like to explain what happened today?
I think, I think the reason why your plans always go sideways is because at the end of the day, you'll be like, man, my plan is to wake up early and do something in the morning.
Uh-huh.
And that is, I think, an unrealistic ask of you.
Yeah, I'm always very hopeful that I will be responsible and that I'll be capable of waking up. The problem is I consistently forget, and it's more that I just get mad at the reality of the situation that I generally need like 8 to 9 hours of sleep per night. But I still think I'm in high school where I only was ever even able to get 6, which probably isn't good for growing teenagers and may explain why I'm 5'6", but that's neither here nor there. Nonetheless, I continue to assume that I will actually have the willpower and the capability to sleep less than I actually need to, and then it's an ever frustrating event when I end up just sleeping.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You could go to bed earlier.
I've been trying to. The problem is it takes me about 3 hours to fall asleep at times. Mm-hmm. And if I don't go to sleep, at 12 or later, then I just end up sitting there and thinking. So,
we hate that.
We do hate that.
Can't have that.
Got to get those thoughts out of the head. Bad.
Scroll.
Meme and scroll. You're worse at scrolling than I am.
I am. That is my fatal flaw.
Next is for 199 says, good to see you guys ready to lore my lodge. I hope you've enjoyed the lodging of the lore. Tyler Downripple for $10 says, no offense, guys. I love you all and take your word on most things, but I feel like if sound can kill people via the wind, then there would be more than 0 recorded cases in all of human history, right? That's valid. At the same time, the type of conditions that would be required for wind to make infrasound are pretty severe. And the majority of people do not live in locations where that kind of severe wind happens. So, that's part of it. Exposure is a thing.
Exposure is a thing. And then I think also like in those areas where you have these really extreme situations and you have a storm that's causing katabatic winds on the side of a mountain that would potentially be able to produce this infrasound. Mm-hmm. There are hikers and explorers that die all the time. And we say that it's, hypothermia, that they were unprepared for the elements. And, there's really no way to, a lot of times, even go up and get the bodies, right? Like in the case of Everest, they just stay there. But to be able to, recover those bodies and say like, oh, it was for sure infrasound, or like, oh, it was for sure hypothermia. It's just people go out in the wild sometimes and they don't come back. Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, in terms of the likelihood of exposure, you could also make the same argument that, just because no one has ever been killed by a colossal squid, as far as we know, doesn't mean it's not possible. It's just highly unlikely considering most people don't hang out around 4,000 feet under the surface of the ocean. So
I aim to be the first
woman
killed by a colossal squid.
Here's the problem. It's going to be very sad, but it's going to be a gangster eulogy at your funeral.
I thought you were going to say video.
No. Just like, everyone is going to be like, just, if there's a way to go,
Yeah.
it's that.
No, that would be so scary for me. I do not like being in the deep ocean.
Which is a hilarious instance considering who you're dating.
I know. You should try being the first person eaten by a giant squid. You would actually love it.
Moving swiftly along. Trains and Stuff for $5 says, give me some beans and I will make chemical warfare look like child's play. Everything on Earth will be gone. Also, another one followed up immediately says, I'm going to milk JMO, which only if he says yes.
There needs to be consensual milking.
Yeah, the consensual milking here at the lodge.
They did find beans
Where?
at the campsite.
I feel so bad because the first thing I thought was Cars 2. Do you get that meme? Does anybody get that meme? I'll for the few of you who do, thanks. The disapproving shake of the head. JMO, the Preacher of Milk, says for $2, Thornbussy with the I shouldn't ossifier. Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you respecting Cat like that.
Thank you.
Snakebite Sam for $5 says she's zuzzling on mine Wireburst. This is German stuff. Until I spill mine sniff. I feel like I should be arrested for saying that.
I think that's an S. The weird looking bee.
I'm gonna keep calling it a
see
bee.
From here. I got bad eyes, y'all. I got bad eyes.
I'm assuming that was wrong, but you know what? We'll live with it anyway. Vampire from Pluto for $2 says, in Soviet Russia, chemicals engineer you.
Yes. I mean, if it was the chemicals, they did kind of get their bodies re-engineered by them.
That is true. That's a hell of a way to put that, but I guess that is an accurate description of kind of what happened to their bodies. Re-engineered into a more entropic state.
Yes.
Anyway, Kellen, the official data for 545 says, Captain Cat Crew represent.
Woo!
For those of you who do not know, on my personal channel, Aiden Thornberry, it's just my name, we occasionally will stream Assassin's Creed Black Flag. And by stream, I mean we literally just set up a webcam in our living room and put it in between us as if you were sitting on the couch with us. And
it's a very cozy atmosphere.
It's a very cozy atmosphere. It's very chill.
Very low tech.
Yes, yeah. It's
but
just
cozy.
And it's so she plays unless she
unless I'm stuck
gives over the controller
by the limitations.
She really loves looting people.
Oh, favorite activity.
Just can't. So imagine it. So if you would like to join us on a Captain Cat stream, type Captain Cat in the chat, go over, give me a subscription on my channel, and comment on the last stream that we did, Captain Cat, if you would like. And then just picture yourself here, because that's
right between us.
Because that's the view that you would have as we play Captain Cat, and we both laugh about her looting and looking at various different animals in the jungle that she finds.
Yes.
And really refusing to engage in pirate warfare or take ships. She's not a fan. Frequently, I will take over in those positions.
It depends.
It depends.
It depends.
You're getting more comfortable with it.
I'm getting more comfortable with the ship warfare. I'm still not super comfortable with some of the missions that require stealth, particularly.
Yeah, you're not a fan of the stealth.
I'm more of a go in guns blazing kind of. I'm laying down covering fire, kind of a.
For yourself?
Yes. I'm shooting everything.
Incredible. Absolutely love it. All right. Anyway, JMO, the Preacher of the Milk, says the Maid Outfit is episode 14, guys. I love that you just have that on tap. I love that you just know that off the rip.
It's good to know.
Is it really only episode 14? Seriously? I thought that had to be at least like dozens in.
Well, the Maid Outfit was before me. Believe it or not.
I know, but that's just shocking. It was that early.
I think Mattis just couldn't wait. He was like, "Oh, I'm starting a YouTube channel. Oh, haha, they're making me put on a maid outfit. This is crazy."
No.
I think this whole thing was just an elaborate excuse for him to like try something out.
I remember why. I remember very specifically why. Because before we started Lore Lodge, he was going to be going to Wales for school to get his master's degree, and he had already paid the tuition. So he had monthly tuition payments that he had to meet. So, and he was working a job he hated. And pretty early on, he quit his job, even though the Lore Lodge was not ready to pay bills yet.
Yeah.
But he was like, I hate this. I'm gonna make this work. And yeah, the milkmaid outfit was part of paying off his student debt.
This was before OnlyFans was a thing, I think.
No, OnlyFans was a thing.
Was it?
Yeah. This was like 2021.
I can't remember when things happened.
Yeah, OnlyFans has been around for, God, I don't know. But I feel like I was hearing about that in like high school and college. I don't know.
You were like, I was the first subscriber.
I'm the biggest spender on OnlyFans. Put that on my eulogy. Only official data for 556 says, what ratio of aluminum filings to iron oxide fillings do I need to make thermite, and how do I ignite it? Come on, Kat, tell us.
No.
But it's for the environment.
We get. Were you gonna go to like an oil pipeline with it? Can't be making those jokes.
No, you
Can't be making those jokes
you
with a full-time job. Nope.
Nope. You have a real job still. But what about what happens when you expose pure sodium metal to water?
Oh. I mean, it's highly reactive.
Why is that?
Because sodium is all the way on that one side of the periodic table. Remember? So it's got
Hydrogen side?
Yeah.
That's left.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. Anyway, so sodium's all the way over there, and it's got only one valence electron, and it's so lonely, and it just wants to be put in a situation where it doesn't be so lonely with that one electron. So it's highly reactive, and it reacts very strongly with water, because it could just like get in there and react with the oxygen, I believe, and the hydrogen goes off, and you get hydrogen gas from that, which is incredibly flammable. And so you don't want to.
So is this an exothermic reaction that then ignites the hydrogen gas?
I don't know if it gets to the auto ignition temperature of hydrogen for certain. I do know, and this is a fun fact about hydrogen gas. Hydrogen gas will, when it expands, most gases get colder. Hydrogen gas, when it expands, gets hotter. So if you have a pressurized container of hydrogen gas and there's a pinhole leak on it, the gas will escape out of that little hole, and it, as it escapes, expands. As it expands, it gets hotter. And that will cause it to catch fire. And the fun thing about hydrogen fires is you can't see them. They burn clear. So you can have like a pinhole leak in a pressurized tank of hydrogen and have like a super deadly, very hot flame and not know it.
The only way you'd know it is if you were hearing it, basically.
Yeah, if you hear it, a lot of times, or if you like are looking at the pressure on the tank and it's unstable, or going down. A lot of times back in the day, what they would do to find hydrogen leaks is you would hold a broom out in front of you and you would wave the broom. And then when the broom caught fire, you found your leak.
Guys, I need you to understand that this is one of the best reasons I love dating her. Because it's just cool things like this that I just get to hear on like a daily basis. Weekly.
You're like, you're not that interesting.
Oh, no.
You're not every day interesting.
Well,
you're like,
no.
You maybe give me a fun fact every week, every couple weeks.
Well, no, that's the thing. It's like
every 6 business days.
You're not sharing chemical industry information every day, because not every day we're talking about it. That's why I said once a week, like average. That's the thing. Is like, we watch like chemical disaster videos now.
Oh,
and
we
like,
do.
well,
We
do that
do.
from the beginning and stuff. And it's just like, I don't know. To me, I love
That was one of the first activities that we did before we even started dating. Was we sat down and watched the Chernobyl
Yeah.
series.
Yeah.
Which was.
I just find her job really cool. One of the many things about her.
He's just dating me for my job. I know.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. Gomb, who's been a member for 22 months, thank you very much, sir, says episode 47 at 8:40, Thrombosi admits to being choked by a Spanish man while celebrating Pride Month with a bunch of men in Ohio. Cat, just a heads up.
Happy Pride Month, everybody.
I don't recall it, but sure. He also said, if JMO makes one more redacted super chat, I'm going to redact my redacted and his redacted until he squeals till redacted, redacted, redacted. Hate JMO forever. I appreciate you redacting. Nonetheless, moving
So
on.
long as the redacting is consensual.
So long as the redacting is redacted.
Yeah. So true. So true, bestie.
So true, bestie.
Moving along.
Griff for $5 says, you should ask Chimp about the new shirt we made in TKO just in time for the September 11th video. It should be in the Milk Layer lobby chat if he's away. Somebody ping me. I'll check it later. We're not going to be doing one this year. We're going to do one next year because we want to do it right. And there's a lot of research that needs to go into that to do it right. But yeah, the goal is that we're going to do a 9/11 video 2026. So just know we are planning that eventually. Perchance.
If the CIA doesn't get him first.
Also, Gomb and JMO are just having their own conversation in the super chat. So I'll let you guys do that. I'll redact that for you. But Gomb is saying that I want to say, Matusi, your HRT is working great.
Thank you.
Daniel Franklin let's try this one more time. Daniel Franklin Henry Jr. did it without even looking at this time. For $10 says, I also work with chemicals, spraying weeds for BNSF Railroad. I'm loving how many railroad people are in here. Or as I like to say, quote, I'm a contracted killer for the railroad. That's phenomenal. Love that.
That is incredible.
That's great. Says, also enjoyed the latest episode of History Unhinged. Glad that everybody's enjoying that show as much as they are. Like I said, thank you to Kat for helping to create the set for it and helping things keep rolling when that occurs, because it's a very hectic week whenever we record those episodes. There's a lot going on. Thankfully, Sophie over here is going to help us out a little bit more and make my life a little less hellish when we do that, because I do really enjoy that show. That might be my favorite thing that we do.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to like be in the background of that and help keep the set rolling.
Yeah.
If as you might say.
Yes, you're basically our in-house production designer at this point.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Love that. And then we just got back to Real Cartel Pilots super chat, and then I'm gonna scroll down and let these reload in. Cybane is a member for 7 months. Thank you. Jamie the Preacher of Mill for $2 says, but how was this caused by Meltwater Pulse 1B? That's a great question. I could probably answer that in the sense of when the glaciers receded, they provided a lot of area in Siberia that was not previously accessible to most humans. And what they did with that area, because the area was not particularly useful for farming and things like that, is they started to cultivate it as a entertainment source by using it for hiking and for doing outdoor activities. And this hiking location became extremely popular, and unfortunately was the location which the Khamar Daban incident happened, where this group decided to go on a hike, and this unfortunate series of events occurred.
Is it possible that lake was glacially carved? Because it kind of has the shape to it, but it is also...
It almost certainly was, yeah.
Big, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm used to the scale of the Finger Lakes for being like classic glacial lakes, and that's like a lot bigger.
So the Great Lakes were also glacially carved.
Were they?
Yes.
Never mind. So that's how it connects. It's 'cause it was right there and it got
There we go.
The Earth just got scooped out.
We got a meltwater pulse 1b connection, and Mattis isn't even here.
And then they got Bleckley steppied on that mountain, and they never got Bleckley steppied off.
That was great. It's really we like to keep things interesting here at the lodge. Moving swiftly along, Frankenstein's Highboy for $10.01 says, this is at 6:20 my time, so probably missing the cutoff. As someone who works with mostly organic oxidizers myself, what is the worst chemical you have worked with / been around? Also, 7.3 update. We'll get you that in a second. Kat, please explain.
Organic oxidizers. Are we talking organic peroxides? Because I love organic peroxides. Now I'm thinking about organic peroxide. So the craziest one would for me be 99, A99, so 99% bisphenol oxide, or also known as benzoyl peroxide, which you may have heard of as being like, you know, a very common skincare ingredient. It's good at clearing up acne, but it is a very potent organic oxidizer, a very potent organic peroxide. And it is at that purity, very like shock sensitive and detonable. So, you know, a lot of care is taken in the production of that, especially in the drying phase of producing that. So we make it a slurry, and then we dry it out to different levels. And 99 is kind of like I think that's as pure as anyone gets. I don't want to be speaking out of term in, you know, the industry, but that's probably the most dangerous from a reactivity standpoint. From a toxicity standpoint, I've been around some mercaptans, which is kind of like a sulfur thiochemistry thing, which is the thing about sulfur chemistry and thiochemistry is it tends to be very poisonous and have some serious toxic effects to it. So not the friendliest stuff either. Trying to think. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Those would be my top chemical hazards.
Cool.
From my line of work.
Yeah, the things that the friction stuff and the highly detonable stuff are always wild to me. I will say I'll give a 7.3 update in about 30 seconds, but right before that I want to make a little announcement. So we don't have a ton of super chats left, and it's only 8:18, so I figure we go until roughly 8:30. So a little surprise, little extra juice at the end here of the squeezing of the lemon that is this show. Feel free to throw in some extra super chats if you have them up until 8:30, because I want to make sure that everybody has their questions answered. So if there's something that you wanted to ask but you didn't have the time to get it in before 8, now is your chance. But anyway, while y'all think of questions that you may or may not have, 7.3 update. So for those of you who may or may not be aware, I drive a very old truck. It's actually sitting outside right now. It is a 1989 Ford F-350, and the reason why it is a 7.3 update is because the engine that is inside of it is the 7.3 IDI. The reason why I got this truck is because those engines are considered damn near indestructible when taken care of properly, and that asterisk will come in important. It will become important very quickly. When I say damn near indestructible, I mean when people take proper care of them, they have gotten up to 1 million miles on those engines, and most cars are done by 100,000 miles. So like they really can run. It's a diesel. The whole reason that it's called indirect injection is because a lot of modern diesels they inject the diesel aerosolized form directly into the cylinder of the engine, whereas these older ones, they're a lot simpler in their design. They use valves that is indirectly injected outside of the engine and then pulled in with the air to then mix. The reason I got it, beyond its proclivity to last very long, is also they're very simple, they're very easy to work on, so I can handle most of the problems that come up myself. Prime example of that was on Friday night. We were hanging out with some friends, and we were going to go meet some other friends at a bowling alley. And we go out and we hop into my truck, and I noticed that there's a lag between when I press the throttle with my foot and when we start moving. and I swap it in and out of drive and reverse and feel that a little bit. So I'm like, interesting. Okay. So I park it and I look at everybody. I'm like, guys, I need like 5-10 minutes. I should be able to have this figured out by that time. But if we don't, if it hits 10 minutes and I'm still messing with this thing, more than happy to take Kat's car or whatever. And they're all just
Reliable vehicle.
Yes. And
Because everyone should have one.
exactly. And they're all sitting there like, we're good to just hang. So I get underneath the truck and I realize, oh, it's the transmission. It is currently leaking from the bottom. The reason for that is because I recently had a lot of work done on the truck because the person who owned it previous to me did not take good care of it. And when I say that, I mean, at one point when they had done mechanical work to the engine, they had used a gasket sealant to put the engine back together to prevent leaks, as most people will do. The problem is they used far too much. And what happened to it is similar to any time you use some form of glue or anything like that, where you put two pieces together of something, you use too much and it beads out on the side.
It oozes.
It oozes.
And the ooze
beaded out on the side, but it also did that on the inside of the engine. And as I was told by the mechanics who did most of the work on it, they said, well, what likely happened is they used way too much and then they didn't let it cure. Because if you let it cure, it will harden up and it won't be a problem. But the problem was they used too much, they didn't let it cure. So all of those beads that formed on the edges of all of the places that needed to be sealed on the engine then ripped off inside of the engine and were floating around in the oil. Now, part of the problem, other than it colliding with a lot of the moving parts that is an issue, is that engines like this have an oil cooler, which is basically just a large tube with a series of smaller tubes in it. The smaller tubes have the oil pass through, and then the larger tube has coolant go over it that goes to the radiator. Well, when they took the oil cooler off, they discovered that the oil cooler tubes, which were there about 16 of them, almost all of them were blocked with this gasket sealant that had ripped off into the engine.
The ooze.
The ooze, which meant that oil was not being cooled. And inevitably, when I was hauling with the truck, it developed a pretty serious piston slap because one of the cylinders had overheated. And we were trying to figure out exactly what the cause was, and it ended up being that whoever owned this before me did not take proper care of it, and the oil overheated, and the engine overheated, and it was toast. So I now have a new engine in the truck. It is a remanufactured Mopar 7.3 IDI. It's still the International, but it was just remanned by Mopar. So I basically have a new truck at this point, which is great. But in addition to that, to prevent any potential overheating in the future, beyond, not doing it wrong when putting it back together, we also added a turbo kit onto it, which increased the power, increased the fuel economy, and also decreases exhaust gas temperatures and things like that to keep the temperature down. Among other things, put a new starter on it, put an electric fuel pump on it, move some things around to make space for the air intake for the turbo kit. So she runs like a dream now, except for this transmission issue that we had, which was as a result of when they put everything back together, the transmission, the engine, and all that. They do an initial torque spec on it, and it was intended that it was going to all have to be retightened within the first 500 miles.
And it's been over 500 miles.
It has been over 500.
And you haven't taken it back to get retorqued.
No, but I did retorque it myself, and I also have torque wrenches that I can torque it to the right foot-pound rating. That's the thing. I just haven't had time, so I made sure, they couldn't do it in that timely manner because I needed it, so I did what I could. But the thing was is that I had, at this point, not retorqued the transmission plate.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. It was leaking. So I went under with ratchets because I didn't have my torque wrenches with me at the time. And I just did a quarter turn on all the bolts, solved the problem, got a funnel, put in some transmission fluid into the transmission, and then boom, ready to roll. Has been running fine since.
Yep.
But that's the wonderful thing about older vehicles. They are relatively simple to work on, and you can keep running. The downside with the 7.3 is they like to leak. So, you got to top up your fluids every now and again. but it's just the nature of the beast. They're
There's
very
puddles.
there are
There's
sometimes
puddles in our
there-
driveway.
It's you can run this thing on fryer oil. Like you can put anything through this engine and it will run.
and anything will end up in the driveway.
Yeah, maybe I'll retorque. I'll retorque. Monthly basis. I'll check the torque rating.
Okay.
There we go. Keep it nice and clean, nice and tight. But
You'll check it on a monthly basis in the morning? Is that when you're going to do it?
listen, listen. Anyway, what we plan on doing in this fall and probably September is we're going to do the final elements of the main overhaul of the truck. Right now, it is a crew cab, long bed, dually, two-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, with the automatic transmission. We are going to be turning that into a 4x4 manual transmission truck. So we're going to be swapping the front axle. We're going to be putting a manual transmission because it has an overdrive on it. I'm actually going to double overdrive it with a gear vendor's overdrive. So that way, when we're driving on the highway, we can get like 25 miles per gallon on a behemoth of a truck, which I find really entertaining. But yeah, and we're going to make it totally off-road capable. It's going to be great. It's going to be, the goal is that if the apocalypse happens, this is the thing to have. Like we're ready.
You can't announce that to the internet.
Oh.
Then they'll be coming for it as soon as the apocalypse happens.
If you come with gifts, you can ride in it. If you try to steal it, you will not survive. There are far too many people in this town who cherish this truck other than me that you would not be able to leave the borough alive.
Cherish.
I'm just saying. I'm not the only defender of Big Blue out there. Just saying. Anyway, so that's the 7.3 update. And then we will continue with the final super chats from here.
Fantastic.
Tyler Dalrymple for 223 says, cheese is delicious. Dairy industry for president 2028.
They sure do have good publicists.
Who was
They sure did get the same lawyers and publicists that the tobacco industry got, as well as the oil industry. So I'll let that marinate, that they kind of decided to be on that alignment. They have a lot of money and they spend it on very good publicists that are very experienced in working with other very lucrative industries. That's all I'm gonna say. I can't get taken down by big cheese. I love cheese too much.
I'm writing in Stuart Little in 2018. Or sorry, 2028. Actually, I'm time traveling back.
Time
to
travel.
2018.
Yeah.
I know it's not a presidential
We're fixing
year.
the timeline.
Elections, yeah. Got to get him started early so that way he's on the ticket for 2028. You know how it works.
Okay, because he was in the orphanage in what? When did that come out?
That was in
like
the 90s.
90s.
Yeah. So he's got to be of age. He's got to be at least 45. How old is Stuart Little?
How old is Stuart Little? When did that movie come out?
He was capable of driving at that point.
Well, okay, but is it human years or mouse years? When did it come out?
So it came out in. Hang on, let me double check. So at the time of the movie, he's between the age of 7 and 9.
Okay.
And then Stuart Little came out. Let's see.
1999.
1999. So let's go the young side of he was 7.
Yeah.
So in 2000, he would have been 8. So 2010, 18, 2020, 28. So 32.
Yeah, he's not old enough.
All right. So we got to get him. How old do you have to be a governor?
Is there an age limit on governor?
I feel like there probably is.
Varies by state.
Well, he's in New York, so.
But he might not stay in New York.
30 years old. Good. So we go to the polls. We Pokemon go to the polls, and we elect Stuart Little as the governor of New York. He makes the radical changes that we all know New York needs. And then when the time comes, because he'll be 32 this year, so 33, 34, so he'll be 35 by 2028. So like 2 presidential cycles from there, he'll be ready to rock.
I just imagine the New York City like rat czar just like losing their minds at the governor being a mouse.
Yeah, no, but then it gets really
it's those antics, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing, because that's how you get the politics running. That's how you get the policies enacted. Because it's in politics, all press is good press.
No one knows a rat like a mouse.
There it is.
I'm ready for this publicity campaign.
There it is. We're running the Stuart Little governorship publicity campaign here.
All right, you always gotta start in your local elections, guys.
It's true. All politics is local. That was a book that I had to read in journalism school. Yeah, I went to.
Get involved in your local politics, kids.
It's worth it. We did here. We're friends with the mayor. You saw that.
Oh, everyone's friends with the mayor.
Everyone's friends with the mayor. It's not special to be friends with the mayor in this town. Anyway, let's see. What do we got here? Kellen, the official data for 545 says there's nothing to worry about under the waves. You can trust me about that. Yes, we have our resident Fed / Submariner. Also,
there
Kellen,
are so many things to worry about under the waves.
I have to thank you repeatedly for the hat that you gifted us, because you have no idea how frequently that has come in handy. A lot of boat work that hat has seen to prevent my ears from getting burnt. And has been very fortunate. I always worry slightly that when I'm wearing it, people might think I'm either being a poser or might think I am a vet, because I'll frequently wear like really just non-military things, but also that. And I feel like that's a very like casual vet thing to do. And it wouldn't be the first time someone has thought I was a veteran, because there was one time I went to Lowe's.
You're beefy.
No, not even. No, because one time I went to Lowe's and I was wearing a U.S. Marine shirt or sweatshirt because because it was family or whatever. It's now I gifted it to Jesse, but I'm in the checkout line and they were like, "Oh yeah, we have a veterans discount," and I was like, "Oh no, I'm sorry, no, I'm not a and they were like, "We got the discount, man. Like it's okay," and I'm like, "I swear to God, no, I'm not. It's a family thing or whatever," and he was like, "Discount?" I'm like, "I'm good."
He's just trying to hook you up.
I think he was, but at the same time, like it just felt wrong. That just felt like stolen valor, and I didn't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
What was that, Lowe's?
Yeah.
Was this on top of the Lowe's card, or was this before the Lowe's card?
This was pre-Lowe's card. This was pre-Lowe's card. Guys, I'm officially 45 now. I have a Lowe's card. Oh no, I'm 35. I haven't bought New Balances yet.
Yeah, there you go.
Although I guess they're cool now. I don't know. People made fun of them when I was in high school. I don't really care, but I've never worn them. Are they comfortable? Does anybody know?
I don't like sneakers. I don't like the feeling of arch support. Put me in Converse.
That's valid.
Put me in those like barefoot shoes, but
your inner alt girl really never has disappeared, has it?
No, I'm either comfortable in like something with 0 arch support, like Converse or Vans, or like flip flops, or heels. 2 extremes.
The last super chat we have is a pretty. It's something. All right, Gom for 503 says, my lesbian Windowsy bodyguards are demanding a union. There's only 6 of them, and I don't pay them in anything other than head pats and LSD. What do?
Well, I think you should listen to what they're asking for. You know, because maybe it doesn't need to be a union situation, but you know, it sounds like if they aren't getting paid well, or they aren't, you know, satisfied entirely with the head pads and the LSD, they have the ability to eat you. So I feel like that's a situation where you want to listen and, you know, kind of make concessions from a management standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm one of those rare people who is a small business owner that also supports unions. So I'm for it.
Yeah. I think, you know, you gotta organize.
Yeah.
For the people. Cause unions, right, are so that, you know, everyone has fair protections.
Yeah, it's so workers don't get exploited. Now, to be fair, there are a lot of unions that just exploit business owners at this point, and that's not good. But in my mind, when you weigh the 2 options, lots of people being able to live remotely comfortably versus a business owner getting really rich and everybody else suffering. There's a side I lean towards, and
Mattis is never gonna let me back on this show.
Yeah,
he's gonna
not.
be like, "You guys talked about climate change and unions. Get this."
I've said that before
off
though, on
the
this show.
channel. Yeah, but like
We don't have him to balance.
we don't have him here to be like unions are the devil. I don't know why I went for a mustache there.
You are being me right now.
I guess.
No, you're doing my job currently. My job is to balance him out for his hot takes, and you're currently balancing me out with my hot takes.
Well, what hot takes have you had?
I don't know that one.
That's not a hot take.
Yeah, but
I'm just saying it's a hot take to
exactly
the show.
Exactly. Again, that's my job.
I guess.
Ladies and gentlemen, everybody.
Ladies and
The
gentlemen,
third Aiden.
everybody. The third.
We got two more. Taylor for 52024 says, please don't fall in one of the acid pools when you guys go to Yellowstone this summer. Your channel is too good. We will do our best. We'll probably have to try one of the hot springs at the very least.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like it's worth.
I thought you were
giving
going
a
to say,
shot.
like, try to throw something in the acid pool just to see what happens.
Never mind, you're Mattis. You are, in fact, Mattis. Incredible. That could be fun, though. Now we're going to do that.
What, throw something in?
Yeah. We'll do that the week you're not there so you don't get mad.
Yeah,
And also,
yeah.
You know, so
But bring safety goggles for the splash.
so smart. So smart. And then last but not least, Gom for 204 says, they can't eat me. I tamed them. I can't pay more. You know what? If you can't pay them and you didn't sign a contract, you're golden.
What?
If you didn't sign a contract and you literally don't have the ability to pay somebody and they knew that, what do you do?
Oh, they can't eat me. I trained them.
Yeah, I kind of just let that one fly.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they can still eat you. I mean, it is Pride Month after all. The lesbians are powerful.
That's true. That is a valid variable in this scenario. It's valid. Last but not least, I want to ask you about your favorite cryptid, because I know what it is, and I want you to share it with the people and why.
Me? My
Yes.
favorite cryptid?
Yes.
What do you mean you know what it is? I don't know what it is.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure?
I love Nessie.
Well, there's Nessie, but there's one in particular that you've always been a big fan of.
Well, I love Mothman.
There it is.
But who doesn't love Mothman? He's a conventionally attractive cryptid. You know what I mean? Like what is a girl to do? You're in the woods. You see a man. You see a moth. You see a Mothman. Mothman. Dude, I mean, like it's the tall, dark, brooding, handsome, wings, glowing red eyes. I mean, it's who could resist?
So you're a Batman fan.
Obviously.
Yep. Okay. All right. Just making sure. Sophie, what was that you just
That was
held
the
up?
squonk, right?
That was the
That is the squonk.
I've never seen a depiction of the squonk before.
What do you mean you've never? It's the Pennsylvania cryptid.
I know we've talked about it so many times. I've never actually looked up what it might look like.
That's bad. You need to do your job better.
Yeah, you're right. Am I fired?
Am I Mattis in this situation?
Yes.
Yes.
There we go. There it is.
Sorry, everyone.
Well,
Oh, wait. I'm going to rehire you because someone needs to do all of the technical stuff to close out the stream.
incredible.
Lord knows it ain't me.
Incredible. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for stopping by. We'll be back with like a normal episode next week. But this was a special edition with Kat joining to give her thoughts on Khamar Daban. It's something that we'd been discussing behind the scenes, but I'm glad she was able to share her knowledge and expertise on that topic with everybody on a large scale today. If you want to see more of Kat and I, feel free to stop by my channel when we occasionally do Captain Cat streams where we play Assassin's Creed Black Flag. By no means do you have to, but it's something that you could do if you wanted. Otherwise, if you have not watched it already, please check out the video that we put out last Friday. It was on the Bridgewater Triangle. It is the second in what I assume will be a trilogy of triangle videos, which is ironic that there are 3 triangles that we could then cover. It's a triangle of triangles. Eventually, it will be. We've covered.
Are you gonna then have a video about the triangle of triangles?
We probably should.
These things do come in 3s.
These things do come in 3s. So so far we have the Bridgewater Triangle and we've got the Bennington Triangle. And I believe at some point we're going to have to cover the Bermuda Triangle. Again, all of them start with B's.
B.
Yeah, so that's interesting. That's fun. It was a good video. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Like I said, next we'll be back with a regular show. If you have not watched it before or yet, feel free to go check out Pop Culture Crisis. It's a good team down there. They're fun people. And Mattis will be there through pretty much the remainder of the week until Friday. So
Give your boy some love.
Give your boy some love. They stream that at 3 p.m. Eastern every day. So let them know that we sent you. Let them know in the chat that Thornbussy and Kat said we had to stop by and say hi.
Yep.
I'm sure they'll appreciate that. But nonetheless, thank you everybody for stopping by, and we will see you on the next one. See you guys.